You're listening to From Stillness, an audiobook for a mind in need of quiet. There's a quiet panic that simmers beneath the surface of your 20s. It's not loud. It's not always visible. But it's there. The gnawing sense that you're behind. That you should know more. Be more. Have more figured out by now. We're sold a script early on: graduate by 22, have your career launched by 23, fall in love by 25, buy a house by 28, start a family by 30. But no one tells you what to do when life doesn't follow the script. When you're 26, unemployed, single, and secretly Googling how to find meaning. Here's the truth most people whisper only in hindsight: nobody has it all figured out in their 20s. Not the polished influencer with the perfect grid. Not the high-performing coworker who just got promoted. Everyone, and I mean everyone, is experimenting, failing, adjusting, and trying again. The highlight reels we scroll through are just that, highlights. They're not the tears, the doubt, the nights spent questioning if you're doing life wrong. The mess behind the curtain is more common than anyone admits. The problem isn't that you're lost. The problem is thinking you shouldn't be. When you believe there's a right way to do your 20s, every deviation feels like failure. But that's a myth, and it's time to unlearn it. Your 20s aren't a linear path. They're a labyrinth. Not a race to perfection, but a rehearsal where trial, error, and evolution are the point. What actually matters right now isn't certainty. It's curiosity. Not having answers, but asking better questions. Who are you becoming? What lights you up? What are you willing to leave behind? The sooner you release the expectation that you should know everything, the more space you'll have to learn what actually matters to you. So no, this isn't going according to plan. But maybe that's because all of this is the plan. Let go of the timeline. Let go of the pressure. You're not late. You're just on your way. There's this unspoken pressure in your 20s to choose an identity and stick to it. To know who you are, what you want, and how to explain it in a neat sentence at dinner parties. But identity isn't something you download once and run for life. It's a living system. And your 20s, they're the lab. This is the decade to experiment. To try, fail, pivot, start again. To be a teacher one year and a designer the next. To go from backpacking solo in Southeast Asia to interning in a crowded city office and realize both versions taught you something real. Your 20s are not for defining yourself once and for all. They're for collecting data about what energizes you, what drains you, who you are around certain people, and who you no longer want to be. The most fulfilled people didn't find themselves by following a fixed plan. They followed curiosity. They stayed open. They changed their minds. Often. Because identity isn't discovered, it's assembled. Not through overthinking, but through lived experience. We think the question is, what should I do with my life? But that question is paralyzing. Try this instead. What can I try next? A small shift that gives you permission to act, to explore, to learn by doing. A ceramics class that reintroduces your creativity. A new city that stretches your perspective. A weekend volunteering that reminds you what matters. Each experience doesn't define you. It adds another piece to the picture. You're not behind because you're still figuring it out. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to, gathering information about who you are by trying, adjusting, and living. The danger is not in taking the wrong path. It's in never trying any others. You are not a fixed label. You're a becoming. And this is the time to explore that freely. The winding path isn't a detour. It's the map. Your 20s will quietly teach you one of life's most liberating truths. Not every relationship is meant to last, and that's okay. Growing up, friendships often form through shared environments. Same school, same interests, same routine. But as your 20s unfold, proximity fades and something deeper begins to matter: alignment. This is the decade where you start to feel the energetic weight of your social circle. Some connections leave you lighter, seen, supported, energized. Others leave you drained, doubting, or silently performing a version of yourself that no longer feels true. The hard part? We're not taught how to evaluate relationships. We assume longevity equals loyalty. But time served isn't the same as emotional health. Think of your relationships like investments. Not all are high yield. Some grow with time, effort, and mutual care. Others stay stuck in the past, held together by guilt, history, or fear of change. You don't need to keep every connection alive just because it once mattered. Just like you wouldn't hold on to a subscription you never use, you don't have to keep friendships that actively cost you peace. Ask yourself, who makes me feel more like myself? Who celebrates my growth instead of being threatened by it? The answers are data. Start reallocating your time and energy accordingly. This isn't selfish, it's stewardship. What matters in your 20s isn't the size of your circle, it's its depth. It's learning to differentiate between people who clap when you win because they love you, and those who clap because they want to stay close to your success. Real relationships aren't performance-based. They expand when you evolve. Letting go is hard. But holding on to what no longer fits is harder. Give yourself permission to outgrow the familiar. Every relationship you release creates space for one that matches who you're becoming. And in that space, something rare begins to happen. The people around you start to reflect the version of you that's finally stepping into their full truth. Your 20s might not come with a large bank account, but they come with something far more valuable: time. And in the world of finance, time is the most powerful multiplier. This is the decade where your financial habits either quietly become your greatest ally or slowly grow into your biggest obstacle. Most of us didn't learn financial literacy in school. We weren't taught how to manage credit, budget realistically, or understand compound interest. Yet these are the exact skills that determine whether money becomes a tool for freedom or a constant source of stress. This isn't about becoming rich quickly or impressing people with flashy purchases. It's about developing a relationship with money that gives you options. True financial freedom isn't measured by how much you earn. It's defined by the ability to make decisions based on values, not survival. Start with simple systems: automatic savings, tracking your spending, understanding the difference between assets and liabilities. A $200 monthly investment started at age 25 can turn into over $650,000 by retirement, thanks to compound growth. Delay that by 10 years and you lose more than half of that potential. This is the power of early action. Your 20s are the time to build financial awareness, not through restriction, but through intentionality. You don't need to deprive yourself. You need to direct your money toward things that matter, both now and later. Every small, consistent choice, saying no to impulse spending, choosing to learn about investing, living slightly below your means, plant seeds for a more empowered future. The habits you build now will quietly shape your life for decades. So don't wait for wealth to get wise. Get wise to build wealth, and more importantly, freedom. In your 20s, your body feels resilient. You can stay up all night, eat whatever you want, skip exercise, and still function the next day. But just because you can get away with it now doesn't mean you should. Youth masks the consequences. It doesn't erase them. What you do in this decade quietly lays the foundation for your future physical and mental health. Think of it like setting the default settings on your operating system. Those defaults: how you manage stress, what you eat, how you sleep, how often you move, become harder to rewrite with each passing year. That's why what actually matters isn't perfection, but intention. You don't need a strict routine or a flawless lifestyle. You need to start showing up for your health consistently, even if imperfectly. Regular movement, quality sleep, stress regulation, and a diet that fuels rather than numbs, these aren't vanity practices. They're essential inputs to cognitive function, emotional stability, and long-term vitality. The same applies to mental health. Learning how to recognize, process, and articulate your emotions, setting healthy boundaries, and seeking help when needed, these are not signs of weakness. They're essential skills. This isn't about biohacking or becoming a wellness influencer. It's about creating a baseline of well-being that you can return to, one that sustains you through life's chaos. Cultures with the longest, healthiest lives don't chase extremes. They integrate small, consistent actions into daily life. That's your goal too. So, invest early. Not because the cost of neglect is immediate, but because it's cumulative. Your future self in your 30s, 40s, and beyond is already hoping you'll start today. Listen to them. The idea that you should know exactly what you want to do with your life by the time you're 25 is not just unrealistic, it's outdated. Your 20s are not about picking the right path once and sticking to it forever. They're about trying different paths, discovering what energizes you, what drains you, and which environments unlock your strengths. This decade is less about climbing a career ladder and more about collecting experiences that build your personal and professional toolbox. That job you're not sure about? It might teach you how to communicate under pressure. That startup gig? It might give you a crash course in problem solving that a corporate job couldn't. Every role, even the ones that feel like a detour, gives you data about who you are and what kind of work aligns with your values. Instead of obsessing over your dream job, shift your focus to what you can learn. What skills can you develop? What kinds of people do you thrive around? What kind of structure brings out your best? These insights don't come from thinking. They come from doing. And when something clearly isn't working, don't stay just because you feel guilty about leaving. The real mistake isn't choosing the wrong job. It's staying in the wrong one because you're afraid to start over. You're not falling behind by pivoting. You're catching up to who you actually are. What matters most in your 20s isn't landing the perfect job. It's becoming the kind of person who's agile, self-aware, and willing to keep evolving. Your career doesn't need to look impressive on paper. It needs to teach you who you are. And the only way to find that out is to begin. Formal education might end after university, but your real education begins the moment you step into the uncertainty of adulthood. In your 20s, the most powerful skill you can develop isn't tied to a single industry or job. It's the ability to keep learning. Not just memorizing facts, but cultivating curiosity, intellectual flexibility, and the humility to say, I don't know yet. We often think of learning as something that happens in classrooms, but in real life it looks different. It's asking questions at work instead of pretending to understand. It's picking up books that challenge your worldview. It's watching lectures, listening to podcasts, taking courses, not for grades or certificates, but because you care about growing. In a world that changes fast, those who keep learning will always outpace those who don't. The best opportunities, in career, in health, in relationships, will go to the people who remain teachable. And teachability is a choice. It's letting go of the need to appear smart so you can actually become wise. Self-directed learning doesn't need to be intense or time-consuming. Read 20 pages a day. Ask someone more experienced to explain what they do. Follow your curiosity, even if it leads to unexpected places. These small acts, repeated consistently, compound over time into massive growth. What matters most in your 20s isn't what you know, it's how willing you are to learn what you don't. The people who thrive in every field aren't necessarily the most talented. They're the ones who never stopped being students. Your 20s are the decade where true independence begins, not just financial, but emotional, intellectual, and practical. It's no longer about who takes care of you. It's about learning to take care of yourself and realizing you're more capable than you think. Independence doesn't mean isolation. It means becoming someone you can depend on. It means solving problems before calling for help. It means learning how to manage a budget, cook a meal, maintain your space, set boundaries, and recover from setbacks. These skills don't just build self-sufficiency, they build confidence, and confidence builds freedom. Emotional independence is just as important. It's learning to soothe yourself without needing constant reassurance and making decisions rooted in your values rather than in pleasing others. It's the ability to hold your own opinion without needing everyone to agree. Practical independence comes from doing small things consistently. Fixing something that breaks. Booking your own doctor's appointment. Planning your week and sticking to it. These everyday acts slowly build a foundation of self-trust, the kind that lets you say, whatever happens, I'll figure it out. What actually matters in your 20s isn't being perfectly independent overnight. It's being willing to try, fail, and improve. The more you practice showing up for yourself, the less you depend on outside validation or rescue. True adulthood doesn't arrive in a single moment. It unfolds through countless decisions where you quietly choose to take responsibility for your life. The more you step into that, the more capable and calm you become, not just for yourself, but for the people who will one day lean on your strength. Your 20s aren't just about finding direction, they're about building the courage to choose it. And not just once, but over and over again. Because every meaningful decision you make in this decade will involve fear. Not because something's wrong, but because you're growing. Courage in your 20s doesn't have to mean jumping out of planes or starting businesses with no safety net. It often looks quieter, applying for jobs you think you're underqualified for, saying how you really feel in a relationship, asking questions when you don't know the answer, or walking away from situations that no longer fit who you're becoming. This is the decade where your brain is wired to crave comfort, but your future depends on discomfort. That gap between who you are and who you could be. Courage is the bridge. And you build that bridge by doing scary things, on purpose. Not recklessly, but deliberately. The courage muscle doesn't grow through waiting until you're ready. It grows through doing it scared. Think of it like a training program. Small reps build big strength. Start by taking micro risks, introducing yourself to someone new, sharing your work publicly, asking for feedback. Then slowly increase the weight, negotiating your salary, trying something where failure is possible, telling the truth even when it's hard. What matters in your 20s isn't avoiding fear, it's changing your relationship with it. Fear doesn't have to be the enemy. It can be a compass. Often, the thing you're avoiding is the thing that would change everything. Most people regret the chances they didn't take, not the ones that didn't work out. Let your 20s be the decade where you choose courage over comfort. Because on the other side of discomfort is growth, clarity, and the kind of confidence that can't be faked. If there's one truth that defines your 20s, it's this. The little things you do every day are far more powerful than the big things you do once. The compound effect is real, and it doesn't care whether you're paying attention or not. Every decision you make, every habit you form, is either working for you or against you, quietly shaping your future. This isn't about dramatic overnight transformation. It's about the slow, steady accumulation of effort. Reading 10 pages a day doesn't feel like much until you've read 15 books in a year. Saving 50 pounds a month seems small until you've got an emergency fund that gives you peace of mind. Taking a 20-minute walk each morning won't change your life tomorrow, but do it consistently, and you'll feel the shift in energy, clarity, and momentum. The key isn't perfection, it's consistency. It's building small, sustainable habits that align with the life you actually want. Because here's the secret. Success isn't usually the result of massive talent or rare luck. It's the byproduct of small actions repeated with intention. The problem? Most people underestimate how much small habits matter until they realize how much time they've lost. The person who started journaling every day 5 years ago now has a clearer mind and a deeper understanding of themselves. The one who started stretching every morning no longer feels stuck in their body. The person who ignored these tiny habits? Still wondering why things aren't changing. Your 20s are the ideal time to choose your systems wisely. Not because everything needs to be perfect now, but because the habits you installed during this decade become the autopilot for the next. And when you compound the right habits early, life starts to move with you, not against you. In your 20s, the pressure to have it all figured out is loud, but the truth is far quieter and more liberating. You don't need all the answers. What truly matters is embracing the unknown, experimenting with who you are, and learning to navigate life on your own terms. This decade isn't about reaching perfection. It's about laying the groundwork for long-term growth, through trial, error, and honest reflection. Whether it's exploring different career paths, building meaningful relationships, learning how to manage your money, or taking care of your mental and physical health. Your 20s are less a performance and more a rehearsal for the life you're shaping. The most successful, fulfilled people aren't the ones who made no mistakes in their 20s, but those who used each mistake as data, each challenge as a lesson. Resilience doesn't come from avoiding failure. It comes from walking through it with intention. And while social media can make you feel behind, remember, you're not seeing the full story. Comparison is a trap. Your only real benchmark is who you were yesterday, not who someone else appears to be today. What makes this stage of life powerful is that every small, consistent choice, learning instead of scrolling, moving instead of sitting, saving instead of spending, compounds into something meaningful. You don't need to do everything now, but you do need to start showing up for the version of yourself you're becoming. That's the long game. That's how you future-proof your life. So give yourself permission to explore, to grow, to question. Let go of the idea that you're behind. You're not. You're becoming. And that process, though messy, is exactly what makes your 20s so valuable.